Well, everybody who's joining, I have Andrew here. He is the author and creator of Conscious Bedtime Stories. It's a series, a subscription of children's books that helps you bring intentionality and consciousness into your nighttime routine with your kids. They are just beautifully written. I've been so impressed with them. And so I definitely wanted to have Andrew on to share a little bit more about the work that he's doing. Andrew, talking about consciousness for families is one of my favorite things to talk about. As doing all of my abundant parent work and talking about law of attraction, consciousness is of course a huge piece of that. So I'm excited to have you on. I understand that you had the opportunity to open for Deepak Chopra at a TEDx talk, and that is such an incredible platform to be on, to be able to share your wisdom. You also write the Conscious Bedtime Stories for children, and I'd like to argue that they're also for parents because they're pretty amazing. And tell us a little bit about what your Conscious Bedtime Stories are and what kind of benefit they bring to children and their own consciousness.
Right. Well, where do we start with that? So just to bring folk in with an idea of some of the titles that we have, because I think it helps set a tone for the types of books. We've got The Boy Who Searched for Silence, who's helping children find silence within. We've got The Elephant Who Tried to Tiptoe, who's just ridiculous because she's not being herself, and she's constantly comparing herself to other animals, and then she realizes, wait, I'm just right the way I am. We've got The Hug Who Got Stuck. And I mean, have you ever had a stuck hug? You know, one of those days when it's like, oh no, everything's bogged down. What do hugs get stuck in? They get stuck in a web of sticky thoughts. So here what we're doing is we're helping kids and parents create a new language around what psychologically we know to be negative self-beliefs. But, you know, let's just call them sticky thoughts. It's much more accessible. On the days when we've got a stuck hug, things get gloomy. So as you start to sort of bring in the different titles and share that, folk can get a feel for the therapeutic space that I'm writing from, my interest in social emotional learning and in mindfulness, which we might sort of bundle under the umbrella of consciousness. I mean, consciousness is a big term. For me, I would like the ability to relate on a healthy basis happening between parents and kids, because if it can happen in the early stages of between parents and kids, then the kids will learn how to do it and take it out into their lives and be healthy humans.
Absolutely. And on just such a more simplistic, primitive aspect, I mean, human beings are just naturally storytellers. That's from the beginning of the time how we passed along our history, and children really maintain that. Children are amazing storytellers and they love storytelling. So there's really I believe no better platform than children's books to really spread these kinds of messages. They're really fantastic.
Yeah, that was something that I noticed when I was doing my therapeutic training. I'm trained as a healer in the more mystical paths, but the work included a lot of developmental psychology and looking at what happens to us as we grow up, and all of the grown-ups seem to be dealing with problems that started before they were 6 years old, and then also like you said right in the beginning, you know, sometimes you think the books might be for you, and that's the power of story, is that it can work agelessly up and down the lineage. We know from our work and the studies of behavioral inheritance and epigenetic inheritance that we are destined to pass on things to our kids. There's no way around it, but let's make sure we do a good job, or a best possible job.
Absolutely. I talk about this all the time in the work that I do, about being so aware of your own history, what you're vibrating, what kind of social programming you've had, and making sure that if there is negative elements to that, swiping that slate clean as much as possible. And sometimes we don't even realize until we're seeing our own behaviors modeled in our children that we're even doing these things to begin with. But I would love to hear more about what your childhood was like, because we did just talk about how so much of who we are was actually really developed really young in age. I'd love to hear more about your childhood and what really got you involved with psychology and that line of thinking.
Yeah, I grew up in apartheid South Africa. I have one sister and was a sort of and two parents who stayed together. They were very loving and very poorly equipped in the emotional language space, and as was in a way the era, and the country was a country of control. So, I experienced the teasing, bullying, humiliation, the internal locked-in experience of going, well, I really don't know how to integrate my own daily experiences. I was uh, dreading the next school day, and then getting home to not have a place where I could debrief it, and I didn't know that that was happening, because of course this is my only childhood. And um, I, I could begin to see in my early 20s that there were some things that I hadn't learned that other people seemed to know how to do. My classic example of that is hugging. I didn't know how to hug. It was something I thought I better learn how to do this, because other people seem to get pleasure from it, and I'm sort of standing here awkwardly. Now you wonder. I mean, I wonder how that could happen, but it happened. And uh, I spent time working in a family business, which brings up, all of the continued nuances of family and their personalities. And eventually, at 28, when I left the family business, it was a real wake up, because I had to work out not only what I was going to do in the world if I wasn't in the family tradition, but also, more importantly, how I was going to be. And I could see that there were some pieces that were missing, and that I needed to um, I needed to learn. I needed to learn and resolve some of my own work. And I mean, I can talk about it now. I make it sound like I knew what I was doing. I mean, that's not the truth. I was still clinging on for dear life and following my nose. But my intuitive faculties took me into encounters with different authors that I hadn't read before, into the work of hands-on healing. I met things like Reiki that I never even heard of, and to me was completely woo-woo. And then I found that actually my interior had a deep softening and a deep familiarity with the experiences that I was having when somebody did a healing for me, or when I then learned how to do healings. And 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 I just followed that. It wasn't enough for me just to do a weekend workshop. I jumped in deeply and went and did. I'm in year 6 of one training at the moment, doing advanced counseling and healing skills, and there's another 6-year course somewhere in the background there as well. So I really jumped right in.
Well, it's interesting too, because a lot of people that I know that are in the mental health work or in healing work, they've often gone through these really interesting experiences in their life where they become awakened that there's so much more possible for their consciousness, that there's so much more understanding out there. And so I love digging into people's stories just a little bit. So thank you so much for sharing that. It really sheds a lot of really beautiful light on how you didn't just become Andrew Newman, the author of Conscious Bedtime
Right.
overnight. It's been the 10-year overnight sensation, as they call it.
Right. And I think, I love sharing that. I love sharing that message with folk who are on their journey and feeling like they're at a point where there's an incongruence between what they do in the world and how they feel in their interior, and they're trying to adjust to that. And um, I, I know that space, and over a series of different career choices, I became closer and closer and closer to congruent with my own life purpose. Um, and each step is challenging, but worthy of uh, the courageous action.
It is courageous. It's faith based. There's a lot of this just doing the trust fall into what you believe your purpose should be. And luckily, if you are really listening to your intuition and you just do that trust fall, more oftentimes than not, the universe is right there to catch you and to provide those little opportunities and those little encouragements to keep you going.
Mm.
Absolutely. I was, kind of stalking you on social media to learn about you. And I can see that you and I have the same belief in that the most effective place to create really loving change in the world is through children. Children
Yeah.
are, they're sponges. So not only are they capable to learn so much, but they're also very open-minded because they haven't experienced as much of that social conditioning, in some cases as much of that trauma. And so I loved reading your books and understanding that you and I are on the same page there. Was there a defining moment when you knew you needed to write these books, or maybe there was a moment where you saw kind of like a light bulb spark in a child where you knew that they were grasping these concepts, or alternatively, there was a moment where you were so disheartened seeing something that was happening in childhood that you knew you needed to write these books?
Yeah, there were moments of that, and in a way, each story in its own right is a moment like that, where it's like this story has to be written. And I say that because they come to me in such a visceral way. The boy who searched for silence, he was, I was I was just minding my own business, uh, doing a, doing a quiet meditation weekend. We did a 4-day silent retreat, and at the end of the meditation, the story came and wrote itself in about 5 minutes, and it was like, um, I like I liken my stories a little bit to being a photographer who takes a picture and then shows it to a friend and says, "Here, look what I saw." Um, and this is this is like, "Hey, you want to know what I saw in 4 days of silent meditation? Here it is. This is what I saw. I met all of my anger. I met all of my frustration. I saw all of my questing to find silence outside of myself. And then I had my personal victory when I surrendered and I fell inwards and I landed into silence. And it was like, oh, and it seems so. So there is this there was a point of compulsion in the journey. I had done 4 little stories. There'd been nothing more than a poem that needed some pictures, and I liked it. I liked the process, so I did it. And then my life changed. I've lost both of my parents, and when my second parent died, it was a real moment of pause and reflection and a choice point about going forwards. And I also knew at that time I had just won the green card lottery, so that's how I got to be in the States. I mean, if that isn't divine providence, then I don't know what is. It's okay. Here we go. It's time to change countries, um, and somebody had said to me at a talk, "Who do you serve?" And I thought that the attitude of service is one that really resonates with me. And I'd had an astrologer actually say to me many years ago that really there are only 2 people in life that we should be in service to. One are the children, and the other are the elderly. Um, and that felt right for me, and that all tied together when it said, "Who do you serve?" And I went, "No, I'm here to help the kids."
Absolutely. I think that really comes through with your books. You were also talking about with your inspiration how it's been different moments. So I could see that when you were talking about earlier when we were talking about struggling with being okay with hugging and everything. And then I have the book, one of your books right here. And then you've written this book, The Hug Who Got Stuck. Immediately when you were telling that anecdote, I immediately thought, wow, that must have been inspiration for at least one of your books. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
It is interesting to know that the stories are intimately my world. I can't write something that I'm not deeply present to, and that is that's a lot of the learning of the healing journey is that this is a world of oneness, and we are part of it, and we can't leave ourselves out, even though we may try.
Yeah.
And of course, for parents, this is the encouragement. Don't leave yourself out. Come fully present so that your children learn how to be fully present for themselves. They will pick up that modeling from you.
Absolutely. Because the whole do as I say, not as I do just doesn't work. No
Right.
matter how much you think you can, it just doesn't work.
Yes.
Well, speaking of the parents, I would love to take a few minutes to talk about bedtime routines and giving parents some tools and tips that they can really apply at night with their kids and bringing that consciousness and an intentional thought into their evenings. Bedtime is such a great time to really slow down, really connect back with your heart and mind, really get back in touch with that intuition, those inner voices, those inner urgings. So in addition to your bedtime stories, what other conversations and activities can parents bring into their bedtime routines with their kids to really maximize that intentional time with them?
Um, right. Well, there's a couple of things going on at bedtime that I think are worth sort of contextualizing. We're transitioning from day into night. We're transitioning from awake into asleep. Um, for a 3 or 4 year old, they're integrating their day, and to we might forget what it's like to be that young and have so many new experiences coming, and need to do the integration. So before the age of 7, kids are still really developing their energy body, their system there, which is the mechanism through which they integrate their experiences of the world. And so it's good for parents to know that kids are really borrowing their nervous system. It's like, when they come and sit on your lap, they are literally borrowing your nervous system. And it means you've got the opportunity to influence their state of inner environment by modulating yours. And so this is one of the reasons why all of the stories start with the breathing practices of the snuggle breathing. 4 simple breaths that I breathe for me, I breathe for you, I breathe for us, and I breathe for all that surrounds us. And when we do that, and maybe we should, right now, but it's like when we do that, it's like, and then we meet. Paired breathing is an incredible way to create connection, and connection is the the tool through which integration of moments of disconnection gets to happen. I don't know if I went around the block on that one, but your kids will have had a painful experience today. They will have had something. It might have been at school. It might have been at daycare. It might have been in relationship with you. And if we get to do the repair in the evenings before they go to sleep, then they don't need to start making negative behavioral adaptations. And so this is why your presence is so valuable at that in the last 20 minutes of the day that you get to support them. One of the reasons why stories work so well is because as a parent, when you're in the authority role, you're in what we would call a front-to-front relationship, and you have rank. You're also bigger than they are, and it's kind of instructional and direct. Now, when we open up a book, and this book opens between us, and we kind of turn our posture, and we're side by side entering into another world, and that's part of the opening that I'm sure you've experienced, that your kids say the darndest stuff in the last 20 minutes of the day. You might be on an agenda to put them to sleep so that you can have your glass of wine and get on with the work that you've still got to do, but and then all of a sudden they start asking things or start sharing things. And so my real encouragement for parents is to be ready for that, and be open to the surprise of it, and not overrule the connection that's happening in favor of finishing the book. I mean, the book's not even important at that matter. What's important is your child and the connection that's happening, um, and uh, and being willing to move a little bit on the kind of this idealized boundary that they will be in bed and the lights will be out by this time, um, in favor of meaningful connection. Because when that meaningful connection happens, then all sorts of things settle in the kids. It's like the extra callbacks don't happen. The I want a water. The I'm still awake. That they actually, all of those things to me and through my lens are requests for contact and connection, when their hearts are full because they've already had that, they will be very content to just transition into sleep.
Well, you said just about 100 things that I love in that moment. I love this idea that you're sitting with your children and that you take away this element of one of you is the boss, that you're both at that point guiding yourselves, guiding each other through the story. It's really lovely. And I know that my kids, we will sometimes get through all the way through story time, and as soon as the lights come off, really, like, I shut the lights off and all of a sudden there's these really huge questions that are just not a yes or no kind of answer. We'll lay in the dark. Sometimes we'll put the flashlight on, and some of our best conversations happen in those moments as we're falling asleep. Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing this. One of the things that I love about the messages that I've seen you spread, not only in your books, but also in what I've seen you talk about on social media, on interviews, is your understanding that children are born with their own ideas and their own purpose. I believe very strongly in this. I'm always preaching this to my community. I see this when you talk about child-led activities and practices to teach children to tap into their own inner voice. Can you talk to us a little bit about the benefits of allowing children to have the ability to make their own decisions now while they're really small?
You know, decision making is a really interesting point to come in on, because there are certain ways that we particularly in the West here, can give children too much responsibility for their age when it comes to decision making. There is a real benefit in comforting children and guiding them, as well as opening up to their unique purpose and expression as it's starting to show in the world. So there isn't a definitive on this. It's much more important to hold an awareness and a question that matches your unique child, that says, is this a right level of decision making for you in your age, or am I giving away my parenting responsibility in this moment because I want you to grow up to be something magnificent? The growing up will happen. I promise.
It does.
So again, to stay with the uniqueness of your child and where they're at feels really important. Now, I mean, I have a book about decision making. We've got the bee who couldn't choose her flower, and that is a great tool for introducing the consequences of decisions. I think that decision making itself isn't really taught. It certainly wasn't taught to me. How do we make a decision? I guess when we learn a game of chess, we're learning the consequence of decisions, and so that's where the gaming and can be supportive for that. Let me just sit with it for 1 minute there, because it feels like a really important, a really important question. I want to come back to the aspect of the uniqueness of each child. And I remember there's a woman called Sobonfu Soma, who grew up in Dagara, West Africa, and in her village, when the mothers were pregnant, they would sit around together and they would go into meditation, and they would divine the purpose of the child, the life purpose of the child, and then they would name the child after its life purpose. I think it's fascinating. So her name, Sobonfu, means the keeper of ritual. Huh. And from the day she was born, she was the keeper of ritual, and she was treated and seen as the keeper of ritual. I understand that that's a rare consideration in today's world, but it's a useful one to kind of to refer back to. So much of our pain and suffering and ill health is a misalignment with our own divine purpose and the reason why we're here. If we can hold for our children a curiosity about, what is your nature? what is your, you might get some insights if you like astrology. You can get insights. If you don't, you can pray on it if you want to meditate on it. And if you just want to keep your eyes open and be curious to it, you can go, wow, this child's really interested in this, and I can see that. And then to create the space for them to have the exploration of their own interests is very precious.
I think you've really hit the nail on the head there. And then just that extra element of the fact that as a culture, we've really lost touch with our intuition and really tuning in and listening to our inner guidance system. And I think that plays a big role in a parent recognizing what your child's inner guidance system might also be, and not confusing that with your own element of ego and what you think that your child should be. But I think I really think you've really hit it on the head there.
Yeah, and I mean, I think I feel, in that moment I was talking, and it felt like I was talking to the parent of very young children, and then I started to think just in the gap here about our education system, about how we start to get streamed, and it's like you've got to decide what courses you want to take so you can go to college so that you can know what you're going to study. I mean, there's merits in all of that, and there's flaws in all of that. We're doing our best here as humans, as society. This is kind of what we've got. But again, to trust that unfolding of the growth, which in a certain way is predetermined to happen because um, we're showing up. I could never have guessed I'd end up where I am when I was choosing courses to study when I was like 15 and 16 years old. And
Same boat for me completely.
right. Yeah, this is the thing that I think we need more narrative about. It's like, the teachers who are teaching kids to make those decisions are also people who absolutely changed their lives at a certain point, went in a different direction, said, you know what, now I'm going to be a teacher, or I was doing business and now I'm doing that. And life has many turns and changes in it. And I think if we're prepared to engage with where we are now, knowing that might happen later, we open up a lot more space for ourselves to enjoy the journey.
Absolutely. It's exhausting to swim upstream. So if we can go with the flow, go down the paths that are opening up for us, we find that it's really quite enjoyable and fulfilling. We talked about a couple minutes ago about how you do offer a breathing exercise at the beginning of all of your books. And it's all part of the nighttime experience the bedtime experience that you're creating with your books. Can you explain how this practice of quieting and tuning into our bodies allows for a greater application of the book's messages? I know you tapped on it just a little bit, but if you want to expand.
Yeah, well, 2 points there. One is that it's really not about the book you're reading, and it's all about the lap that the kids are sitting on. And it's useful to have some nice books. So
with great words and pictures.
Yes, but let's start with that core message that again that positions the parent-child and the connection that's happening in that moment as the primary thing here. My books and the breathing are tools that help that to come to the surface. We use also those 4 breaths contextualize our world. Here's me, now I can see you. Because the two of us are here, all of a sudden there's something called a us that starts to arise in the middle, and then where are we? So I breathe for all that surrounds us.
And if you don't mind, I'm actually just going to open the book and show everybody what you have in the front. It's not complicated. I know some parents might be thinking, oh gosh, how am I supposed to do that and read the book? But it's just, It's amazing how words can take us down such a productive, mindful path for consciousness.
Right. And then so what's happening in many of my stories is that the key character is facing a challenge. And it's the type of challenge that your kids are going to already have faced, or they're still going to face. And for sure, by the time you're your age, you've already had a look at this. But like that one that you were holding up, the hug who got stuck. So the hug's coming out of the hug factory. It gets caught in the web of sticky thoughts. I've got it right here. We've got it. Everybody knew that hugs are made in the heart, right? Um, and and uh, and this is the moment where that hug leaves the door of the heart. There it is, and he gets stuck in the web of sticky thoughts. Now we descend into the hero's journey, and because kids love drama, right? They're going to hang on like, what's happening? Oh no, oh no, and then through the story, it's one of those days when the whole world gets gloomy, and then there's this moment of repair that starts to come out. Now, this is what I might call, and psychologically, I'd call it the healing response. We want to learn the response to a difficult inner situation, and it starts with a sigh, and the out breath allows the possibility of an in breath, and then the in breath starts to move, and things start to brighten up for this little guy, and he gets free. And I say he lightly because actually hugs don't have a gender. Um, yeah, so these stories, when there is this arc that I'm intentionally taking the reader on, so that we can meet something that's familiar. I know what it's like to have a stuck hug. I know what it's like to feel gloomy. I know what it's like to feel like love's not coming in and out of my heart because something squirrely's going on up here. I'm thinking I'm not good enough, or nobody loves me, or um, I can't show up the way that I want to. And then so this is now teaching, how do we get from our head all the way, that's the longest journey of our life, back down to our heart, and then through that hero's journey. And of course, at the back of the books, we've got, apart from stickers, which our kids are going to love, we've also got activity pages, and the back of that hug book that is your daily hug meter, so that you can check that your heart is full before you go to sleep. Does that answer the question?
I think so. And yeah. I love the stickers too, because it doesn't matter how far advanced technology gets, kids still love stickers. Like, I don't know how my kids still love stickers so much with so much technology at hand, but they love it. So when they looked to the back of the book and they saw that there was a way to like use these stickers and see how far that they've come in the progress and understanding the story and the repetition of it, they really loved that element of the book. So I thought that was great to incorporate the extra activity and kind of also creating the arc with the experience of bedtime, of opening with the meditation, reading the story, closing with the sticker. I just think it's all fantastic.
And if you think about it from the perspective of between the age of sort of 0 and somewhere between 7 and 8, you kind of have to put your kids to bed. It's part of what's going to be happening in your house. So why not make that time something that really got value? And I'm not talking about value for the kids only. I know what it's like and I hear from parents that they're anxious about whether they're good enough parents, and they're anxious about whether it's like, oh no, I did that thing today, and I was like, oh, I didn't mean to do that, but I lost my rag, and it was like everything got a little crazy. And it's like, when you get, as parents, you get the opportunity to fall back into your own center by connecting with your kids in this way. They're actually here to help you do that. Mm-hmm. And this is the work Dr. Shafali Sabari, who's Oprah's favorite on conscious parenting. She's got a very strong message that say, whenever you're feeling rattled by something your kid's doing, you can say, thank you very much. This is a perfect moment for me to awaken to myself.
But like we were saying earlier, that kids, they're borrowing your nervous system. They're mirroring our neurons. Our energy is impacting them. So you're 100% spot on.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell us where we can find your books. I understand there's a subscription. So how does that work? Do we just buy one book? Do we sign up for the subscription?
So consciousstories.com is the home base for the books, for the community, and for the Book of the Month Club. You can buy one book there. You can buy or you can join the sequence. So if you decide to join the Book of the Month Club, there are the books are pre-scheduled. This everybody gets the same book in the same month. That means that we can have deeper conversations about the themes. I do a full moon story time on Zoom that families are welcome to join, and I obviously love the opportunity to hear how it's going and see how I can help and support and learn and shape and what you'd like me to write about and things like that. The books are also available on Amazon. If convenience is your choice. If you like supporting small businesses, then I direct you to our personal website. But Amazon is also a great platform for convenience, as we know. And then our social media that obviously you hear already. Conscious bedtime stories on Instagram and Facebook, and we're.
And then I'd like to add, these books are really, the imagery, the words, they've won some awards. They're really incredible books. And I know it's October, but the holidays are fastly approaching. So it's one of those things where these also could be really amazing gifts if your grandparents watching, if you don't have kids yourself, but you do have friends who have kids, if you're an aunt or an uncle. You don't have to be a parent to purchase these books for families that you know. They would be an amazing gift with the holidays coming up. I'm so sorry, everybody, for bringing the holidays up in October.
Well, I will say that we do have 6 inches of snow outside. So to be fair, Colorado started the Christmas season already. In that spirit, we've had many people who've gifted books to their local library, and or said, okay, I'd like my school library to have a collection of these. I love traveling. I in fact don't have a permanent home base anymore because the stories have me traveling so much. So if you have a school and you'd like me to come and read stories to your kids when I'm there, we often do new story creation as well. I always meet with the parents to talk to them about the last 20 minutes of the day. Often give an opportunity to inspire our teachers who are on the front line and working so hard to be healthy role models for our little ones. So yeah, if you offer a warm bed and a meal, the chances are I'll say yes, because I want to come and hang out and meet your family and see if we can share stories around the world.
Well, that's really generous of you. I know even at my kids' school, there is such a huge movement of mindfulness happening that they're actually teaching. They have a social emotional teacher that's teaching kids about mindfulness and consciousness and empathy, and so the books are very timely. And your presence as a speaker to kind of be a new face and really inspire the parent community and the children themselves is really fantastic.
Yeah, and Leah, thank you for being a sort of a bastion of this community as well. And I mean, this form of technology and platform and these discussions are so important because they can reach so many people. I constantly at parenting conferences meeting mums like you who are dedicated to helping other mums, and I know that it's part of your own personal journey to help yourself and kind of stay awake to your own parenting actions and choices.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate that. That's how it starts. That's all we have to do. There's nothing more to do than that.
I appreciate that so much. Yes, as coaches, as educators, I think we teach what we are also learning ourselves.
Right.
And just feeling so empowered and so awakened by what we're learning that we want everybody to feel as alive and awake and as good as we do. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Andrew. We're also going to throw a little video together later, Andrew and I, and we're going to post that and have that circulate around YouTube and social media and stuff. And we are going to, we've recorded this on Zoom as well, so we are going to be posting this video around. If you just caught the tail end, you wanted to catch the whole conversation, it will be up for you to watch and also to share. We would really appreciate you sharing. Thank you, Andrew, so much for joining us. You can catch Andrew, like he said, on the Conscious Bedtime Stories on Instagram. And then what is your hook on Facebook?
Also, that's the same, Conscious Bedtime Stories on Facebook.
And then your website is also consciousbedtimestories.com.
That'll work, or consciousstories.com.
Excellent. And then for me, you can catch me at theabundantparent.com. I'm also the Abundant Parent on like all the social media. I'm around.
She's around.
I'm around. Thank you so much, Andrew. I really enjoyed speaking with you. And thank you, everybody who joined today for our live. We'll look forward to continuing this conversation in the comments. If you guys have questions, definitely reach out. We're here.
Thanks, Leah.
Okay.
Thanks, folks, for joining. Nice chatting.
Bye.